Isn't that something?
Right.
And
you thought it was going to be Edgar Allan Poland.
Yeah, that's what I thought. And so he made this. He's got the Israeli flag, but he put a swastika on it.
Was he Kanye West?
And he says Israel is the new Third Reich, and that's exactly how its flag should look.
It's the third temple. Get it right.
So, by the way, what right does this guy have to desecrate that flag? Adding powder blue stripes and all? But what would a guy named Konrad Berkowitz know about Nazis in Poland? Huh?
Yeah.
It's not like they ever marched through there before. Am I right? So let's listen to him say it. He says it in Poland. Polandish. Right. So let's listen.
Pójstwa ze szczególnym interesem. Izrael to nowa trzecia Rzesza i jego flaga powinna wyglądać dokładnie tak.
Nice.
Dziękuję.
And so, dziękuję.
Pan poseł Maciej Konieczny koło razem.
Pimka stoi, jak sen pista. What he's saying is,
Panie pośle, pokazywanie
what he says is Israel's committing genocide with particular cruelty right before our eyes. Israel is the new Third Reich, and its flag should look exactly like this. That's what he said. That's the translation.
Remember, they were with the Nazis in the beginning. Right in the beginning. There's those coins with a Swazi on the back and the Israel thing on the front because they were working with the Nazis, the Zionists. The Zionists were.
Yeah.
It's a well-known fact.
So they tried to. So then, the Israel's embassy in Poland condemned the anti-Semitic horror in the and then so that's what they called it, right? But then this guy Conrad, he responds. You want to see it? So so down here it says up here. This is from the Israel ambassador. It says, we condemn in the strongest terms today's anti-Semitic horror. They're just not going to ever stop that. They still think that you still think that calling something anti-Semitic or someone an anti-Semite has any power. You
say abracadabra or something.
Yeah.
It'll be more effective.
Have you ever read the story of the boy who cried wolf? On Israel's official Holocaust Remembrance Day, a Polish MP desecrated the Israeli flag and compared the Jewish symbol and the Jewish state to the Nazis instead of showing solidarity with Holocaust victims. He is showing solidarity with the modern day Holocaust victims, and the Israelis are the modern day Nazis. Auschwitz today, this vile anti-Jewish act is especially appalling. Support for it by other politicians only deepens the shame. The Polish authorities must act now to address this disgrace and remove that. They love to tell other governments what to do. They did it.
Israel just bombed a synagogue in Iran. They bombed an Iranian Jewish synagogue because it was in Iran. They just did that.
Yep. Here, this guy, my friend Konrad Berkowitz responds. He said, and I condemn your genocide across all of Palestine. We condemn what you are doing in Gaza, Lebanon, and Iran. I condemn your armed...
It's all opinion. It's all opinion. Doesn't make it right. All opinion. All right. Good afternoon, everybody. I want to give you where we are in our total. We're very close to a new, a new breakthrough. But right now, as of yesterday, you have 19,298,297 shares of Railtown. 19,298,297. Pretty impressive. I'm going to do my best not to give opinions on anything. except, of course, when you're projecting a stock price and the markets, you have to give opinions. But one of my strongest opinions is that men and women in general, broad, not specific men, not specific women, see things differently. And men in general want to hammer, they lie. Men drive fast, cut off, cheat. They're a bunch of losers, exaggerate. But in general, men want to go at it and come to the truth. I had a man at my college under oath say, well, what is truth actually? And it's true. Who the hell knows what truth is? But in general, men seek what the answer is. And this is from studies. I'm not making it up. But in the broadly, women put truth down the list. Top on the list is getting along. And when they're asked about truth, the answer is it's complicated. So I suggest the feedback I got yesterday fits that paradigm, which is if you have opinions, I just turn down the music, turn down the volume, and I don't listen. Well, it fits that paradigm, but I'm going to honor it. I'm going to honor it because, frankly, she's correct. I don't know what the hell news sources out there are correct. So I'm not going to talk about any of that. I think it gives you a great disadvantage not to think about it. If you treat this like opening up a child's fairy tale and the unicorn's going to show up and make everything right, or the knight in shining armor, or like Scarlet in Gone with the Wind, tomorrow. I'll worry about that tomorrow. I mean, it's actually good advice in life. Let God handle things and you don't worry about it. But if you're talking about investments, how the hell do you allocate money without considering what's going on in the world? How do you do it? If it's opinion, just zone it out. I don't agree with it. Zone it out. I'm just going to listen to your stock ideas. Well, I'm going to try it for as long as I can stand it. I'm going to try it. I think it's a disastrous way to invest. Absolutely disastrous. You have to have a thesis of the overall background of what's going on. If you don't have that, how do you know how to allocate, or when is your warning sign that you need to leave the market? I'm not listening. I'm not listening. I'm not listening. It's anyway, I'll try it. I will try it. I will try it. The only thing I will point out is that the miracle of AI, I think it's just so big that almost nothing can stop it. Obviously, that's an opinion, but I assume investment opinions are acceptable. However, most of our country's business plans, from Amazon to suburbia to our military, which can, if you drive a tank into battle, you have to, it's like 5 gallons per mile or something. But then you have to bring 2 vehicles behind it, each consuming gasoline, to bring gasoline and bring, everything is predicated in our lives on endless supply of cheap energy, oil in particular. And if I can't give opinions on what's going on in the Middle East, I can't warn you that it's very likely next week, because it looks like the same people are going to be in the negotiating table. And I guess it's opinion that if those same people didn't get it done 2 or 3 times before, they're not going to get it done now. So I can't have that view. I just have to say, we'll see. We'll see what happens. But if you are essentially thinking about your account, thinking about the stock market, it's probably something to try to be aware of. But maybe it's best just let it happen. And once it happens, make your decisions then. That might be the best, because then we'll know it'll be factual. It won't be opinion. But if oil goes to $150, $200, $250 a barrel, which it will, the question is, will it do it now? I think that stops the bull market in stocks. Markets, one thing Wall Street wants you to think is that markets price everything correctly. Well, if that were true, Warren Buffett wouldn't be rich. It's just not true. But they want you to think that so that you're complacent. You put it in an ETF, put it into a mutual fund. And that's largely what the baby boom generation did. After the love-ins and peace, love, not war, part of the generation grew up. And it's been wildly successful for Wall Street and for the investors. It's been amazing. But I might, to fill in a little time since I can't give opinions anymore, I might read you a short bit of this book, which I recommend, although a friend of mine in New York said he couldn't get into it. I'm not all the way through, but I think it's great. All of that value that shows up in your mutual fund statements and your ETFs, for that matter, in your Zillow comparison of your second and third home, that can all disappear. Maybe not in one crash, but maybe it's a series of lower lows over a 3 or 4 or 5 year period. But it can happen. There's nothing magical about the pieces of paper. And the amount of leverage this is not opinion, this is factual. The amount of leverage in the world's financial system, mostly run by the West, is gigantic. Some people have it at 400 quadrillion. If you include derivatives. Why wouldn't you include derivatives? I'm not sure it's 400 quadrillion. It might be 400 trillion, which is 40% of a quadrillion. Point is that the worldwide debt and leverage is something like 10 times the world's GDP. And leverage is what gets everybody in trouble. When you're down to your last shuck with nothing left to sell and too far away from home. Ride me down easy, Lord. Ride me on down. I can't seem to come up with the rest of the lyrics. And leave word in the dust where I lay. He was easy to love and easy to go. Can't remember it. Billy Joe Shaver. Billy Joe. I used to know all the lyrics. I really wonder if I'm losing my marbles sometimes because I can't remember anything. When you're down the highway, she's a hotter than 9 kinds of hell. The rides, they're as scarce as the rain. When you're down to your last shuck with nothing to sell and too far away from the train. I'll skip the next verse and just go to the chorus. Ride me down easy, Lord. Ride me on down. Leave word in the dust where I lay. Say I'm easy come, easy go, and easy to love when I stay. Anyway, we like to think that events around the world are not going to have an effect on our lives. So why have an opinion? Why read the news? Let's ignore it. Well, I suggest to you that's dangerous to your financial health, but I'll go along with it for now. I'm not very good at it, so I don't know how long I'll go on with it, but I will. The point as it relates to the investment in Railtown is I think Railtown's price has factored in everything negative. Railtown's price right now, if you believe it represents, like Wall Street wants you to, all the facts and therefore the price is accurate. I dispute that, which is our investment opportunity. But Railtown now prices in that AI is going to collapse. Railtown prices in that Langchain beat Railtown to the punch. Railtown already prices in that every country in the world will not want Railtown on top of their sovereign data centers. Railtown already prices in that there will be no catching fire of the Railtown N10 suite, which is IP'd, and it was a heavy lift to create and does everything from observability to real-time data ingestion to the same crap the other ones do, but better with rail tracks. That in a time when all applications, and in fact all software built with SDKs, to keep it as a simple one sentence, all software built with SDKs has to be replaced with software built with ADKs. And that's where Railtown sits. It's already priced that that's not going to happen and that Railtown missed the boat. Another way of looking at it, Railtown at a roughly 70, it's under this, but roughly $70 million valuation, enterprise valuation. If you use $70 million and you just use the lowest of software as a solution multiples, not ADKs, SDKs, 5x. I mean, if you want to go lower, you could use the finger motion. You could use the finger motion multiple. I don't think it's 2x anymore. I think it's, well, no, it might be 2. And now the stock's up. I'd have to look what their market cap is. The stock's back up a little bit. Might be 2.5x times revenue. And remember, Railtown's TELUS revenue should be 100%. We'll use the finger motion multiple, 2.5x. So at a 70 million market cap, that's implying that all Railtown will ever do is 28 million in annual recurring revenue, and it'll be down the road. That's all it'll ever do. So my contention, which is opinion, but I guess it's in investments, so I might be right. My contention is that's the wrong price. You can show that the AIP network, which Railtown purchased lock, stock, and barrel, and all of the founders of AIP networks are now in positions, significant positions, in the Railtown AI Technologies Brain Trust. But you can make an easily identifiable argument that just the spending by the network of companies, which Railtown owns that network, when they move their hyperscaler spending to TELUS, and that's it. That's it. You don't count anything else. That's going to be 40 to 50 million a year and growing, albeit maybe slowly. So the stock already prices in disaster. And in fact, the stock is priced as if the company is going to have to go take a toxic financing from Ari Rubinstein, or from the Toad, or from Jeff Easton, or from Kurt Kramer, or someone of that ilk. And by ilk, I mean criminal. I don't mean Jewish, just to be clear. And it's in my opinion that they're criminal. But it misses a fact. It misses a fact. The company has $6 million in cash. It misses the fact that the company's on the verge of turning on the revenue spigot. And $6 million can last a long time when the top guys, there's only a few top guys, and they are guys. I'm not trying to be sexist. Although I think the CFO's wife, very talented, comes in and helps. But the top, there's not a plundering of the treasury for their salaries. So 6 million lasts a long time. Of course, you got engineers. But 6 million's more than they've had at one time, I think, ever. Maybe at the IPO. They got plenty of money to get to revenue. So that's the one thing the pricing misses completely. The second thing they miss is, and now I can't vouch for this. This is just my thinking. But if the company were to be delayed in getting to revenue, they have a consortium of investors who are essentially the two guys from BlackBerry, the most respected. One of the guys, the Steely Dan guy, Don Fagan, is I think the wealthiest investor in technology in Canada. The other guy, hard to pronounce his name, he's not Turkish, but he's Greek, but I think he is born in, anyway, I'd love to hear someone say the name to me repeatedly, and then I would finally remember it. But that guy, I don't think was as rich as his partner because he held on to his stock too long. Maybe he didn't pay attention to the macro events going on, and he just blocked it out. I don't want to hear it. 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 It's not true. It's not true. It's not true. Oil's not going to 250. It's not true. Oil's not going up. The Middle East is under control. Everything's great. Everything's just, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. Well, it cost him a lot of money. I don't know what the issue was at the time. And I'm not saying that even if you get the macro correctly, that you're going to make the right decisions. It's very difficult to sell. It's the hardest thing on Wall Street is to sell. But what they forget, and I submit to you, is these two guys and maybe a sundry got a really sweetheart price on their stock, but they have warrants. They have warrants. Don't you think if the company got into cash issues, which I don't think it will, that either these guys would do a new offering or, I don't know, they'd have to be enticed to do so, I suppose. But in lieu of a new offering, maybe the company says, I tell you what, if you exercise your warrants, we'll give you additional warrants or something like that. There are sources of capital. So the company is not going to do a toxic financing. The stock is priced as if Canaccord Genuity is going to come to the rescue of Ari Rubinstein, come to the rescue of the Toad, come to the rescue of Lynn Partners. It's not happening. There isn't going to be a toxic financing. But the price isn't telling you that. But you know it. You get to take advantage of that knowledge while it's not out there. All right, that's one thing. The price is wrong. My broad comment on the price being wrong. So I would argue that the stock price already factors in disaster after disaster after disaster. I cannot have an opinion on it. I can just suggest it to you as an if. If for some reason I can't have an opinion on the reasons, but if oil were to go over $150, $200, $250, $300 a barrel, and it happened quickly, it may or may not. I have no opinion. There's no way to know. Anything you suggest is just opinion. Doesn't mean I would be right. So we'll just go with an if-then statement. If oil goes over 150, either quickly or in the medium term, it's going to put a massive depressing effect on the AI story. Massive. It'll probably put a depressing effect on the markets too. So you got to be aware of that. I think what it will mean is, I'm not predicting it, I have no opinion. But if it happens, I think the markets will treat all AI stocks rather harshly. So in that environment, will Railtown be okay? Now I can give opinion because it's investment opinion. I think the answer is yes, because it will be a known risk that'll be calculable within broad ranges, of course. But by that time, unless it happens quickly, by that time, Railtown should have a clear path, in my judgment, to massive revenue. I've shown it to you. And that's something you know within reason. within reasonable projections. So you can act on it. But I think what scares markets is the unknown. So if it becomes known that every AI stock, every hyperscaler, the stock market has collapsed 30% or some number, I think what will happen in the background is the well-heeled hyperscalers, and I don't know if IBM is a hyperscaler, but companies like IBM and NVIDIA and Oracle will use the opportunity to use their cash and their shares to gobble up the parts of the stack they don't already own. And in order to buy Railtown as part of a stack, 70 million ain't cutting it. 50, if it goes down, it's not cutting it. It's just not going to happen. That's my judgment. So I think you have to be aware in the unpredictable possibility, for no obvious reason, that oil prices go up. Not my opinion. I'm just assuming everything's fine. But if they do, you're going to see a correction in the AI stocks. My point being, I don't think it's going to look. The criminals will short and suppress the price, but as soon as revenues kick in and gain purchase, I don't think it matters. I don't think your investment in Railtown will go down. Any short-term period, anything can happen. But I don't think, as long as you don't sell in a short-term sell-off, I don't think you're going to lose money. And then the third thing I want to say, I noticed last night and today, as I tried to find new things to tell you, and it's exceedingly difficult to find new things to show you. Can I call them data banks? The search engines and the AI brains out there, there's no information that the data banks have about what is the magnitude of the arrangement with TELUS for Railtown. Well, that gets back to the heart of the problem that we've had since February 8th. Once Railtown announced the acquisition of AIP Partners and put MOU in the title, put LOI in the first paragraph, put weeks in the first paragraph, and said acquisition, and then put in the fifth paragraph that Canaccord Genuity was the exclusive overpaid wanker, the whole thing causes the automatic selling from AI computers that the short selling factories own. And the selling has never stopped. There's no stock for sale. There may be a few day traders, maybe. But in general, there's no stock for sale. Something like 45 to 60 million of the float is closely held. And then of the remaining part of that float, there might be another 35 million, all kind of, can I use that word, clustered around one of the main movers in the stock up in Canada. They're not selling. There's a guy on the West Coast reportedly had a target of owning 10 million shares of Railtown. I don't know if he got there. He must have by now. And then we've got 20 million. Nobody's selling. But there's still people out there that tell me, well, the price is where it should be. You know, the sellers are, it's nobody selling. I mean, there might occasionally be the selling to pay for the exercise of warrants. That's just a one-off. And it's not a big deal. So the selling is this heaviness. Calling them short sellers is not descriptive enough. They have the judges in their pocket. They have the attorneys in their pocket. They have Congress in their pocket. They have the lobbyists in their pocket. They have the SEC in their pocket. They have FINRA in their pocket. They have that smiling idiot at the over-the-counters in their pocket. They have the ever-expanding rear end of Adina Friedman in their pocket. They have the Oversight Committee in their pocket. And they broke up the banks into risk-taking and then asset collection side, asset gathering side. So they have this strategy of applying, you know, New York Stock Exchange strategies to stocks under $5 who need to raise money. Nobody services these companies on Wall Street. Nobody raises money for them. Nobody writes research except the criminals. And so when those companies, doesn't matter how good the idea is, they get the heaviness. And Railtown's been subject to that. And we've been waiting for, I think, although frankly, I don't know, but I think we're waiting to hear what TELUS, because the first extended quiet period was AIP, but then it overlapped because that didn't stop it. November, they announced that was completed. It didn't stop it. It overlapped with whatever the heck is going on at TELUS. But there might be something else. Maybe they're doing a deal with, you know, I don't want to speculate because then you'll take me seriously. But there could be other things on the plate that are keeping the lid on information. But I think we're very close to TELUS, my opinion, kicking off the whole game. And I think in that framework, you're going to start being able to see revenue yourselves, and analysts will see it. Buying should come in, even in a overall market collapse, possibly caused by, for example, higher oil prices. Maybe. It's not my opinion. I daren't give an opinion. So the third point I touched on, which I just want to complete, and then I'll go to your questions. I think the information about Railtown is not out there. Many say, well, if it's so good, somebody would be breaking the law and buying. Well, I don't know. It seems that way in the United States. Maybe Canada is different. Maybe people are they're not going to waste their time on stocks under $5, much less stocks under $1. And they've got too many other opportunities to study and invest in, so they're distracted. Or maybe they do the same thing I did last night and this morning, Googling things, and the answers they get back are pretty puny. Well, what I suggest to you, and I guess it moves into opinion. I think the price of Railtown is wrong. I think you have information. Some of it's leap of faith, some of it's connecting the dots, some of it's looking at the broad macro and recognizing they need this. So there is a little bit of getting to the rope bridge that extends between two cliffs 1,000 feet up, and you got to cross that in order to get to the gold mine. There's a little bit of that, but I think that's your opportunity to buy the stock, and it has been your opportunity to buy the stock. You have an understanding of this opportunity that nobody else has. Others, some don't want to listen. Some know it, but they cannot buy it, like the BlackBerry fellas. They already invested in the offering, but you think that's all they want to own? They're not allowed to buy it. Not allowed to. What is it? Material non-public information. Material non-public information. You can act while others are waiting on that. And then there's probably people out there that haven't even heard the story yet, so they're not buying. So you're in a perfect situation where Wall Street has this impression that all prices reflect all the information there is to know. It's not true in Railtown's case. And you know that, so you can act. We do know, at least it appears, that in Canada, they follow the law better than they do down here. It seems like there's material non-public information that has to be distributed at some point. So until then, all the big buyers can't buy it. But you can. You can. The corollary to that situation is all of the big brokerage houses and advisors, wealth advisors, they cannot recommend to their clients to buy it because they have privileged information. And then finally, there's just a whole swath of pools of money, in particular, ETFs, retirement accounts, brokerage firm, sales forces, et cetera, that cannot buy it because they don't know about it. I guess they could, but they're not going to. And it's under $5. So you're in a perfect position to act on information that you have and understand that's just not out there. It's just not out there. So that's my start off. I hope I kept it mostly away from opinion, other than investment opinion. We're basically at 19,300,000 shares. I think you should, if you can stand it, I think you should still be moving your high risk positions and your speculative positions here to Railtown. On a probability basis, this ain't going to zero. And even if the markets suffer corrections, which I'm not calling for, by the way, I think the market's headed higher. You know, I've been calling, where's my piece of paper? I called for the S&P to go to 7,000. I think a year and a half, 2 years ago. Guess what? It is. I think the markets are going much higher. And maybe I don't want to move off into opinion, so I won't comment. But there are things perhaps in the Middle East that could resolve, and we can get into a period where the market skyrockets. which is what I think is going to happen at some point. That's our last warning sign, though, oddly. Anyway, I think we should try to get this to 20 million this week, next week. You're not going to regret it, in my judgment. All right, let me go through comments. Ricky's here. Ricky, I want to show you something. It's not particularly, I'm going to take this down. It's not particularly perfect or anything, but I had it, I tried to create it to answer your question from yesterday. And it's reasonable, but it's, I don't know. I don't think it's perfect. But it helps describe what you were asking for. So here's a data center that AI came up with. It's not, this is not provided to me by Railtown. This is just something that AI, her own self, created. But it's, you know, I asked them to do a Canadian sovereign AI factory data center. And it's an interesting picture. One of the things that comes across here and down here is hydropower. Hydropower, cold water in Canada, hydropower. And that's one of the strengths of the TELUS data center is, here's down here, you see power generation and chiller plant. This electricity portion, this power, is something like a third or 40% of the cost of a typical data center. That's a huge reason to move compute demands over to this data center. So anyway, that, I think that's a fairly accurate depiction. The next level are these TELUS NVIDIA stacks. And I, you know, I've been in these kind of computer storehouses along the Dulles Access Road in particular. I raised money for 2 or 3 companies, one in particular where the CEO would take me in and show me their stacks and how it worked. They were smaller than this, but I think this is probably an accurate image anyway. Maybe it's not exactly how they do it, but they have these TELUS NVIDIA stacks. And NVIDIA, in this case, it's the top of the line NVIDIA chips available. I understand they only installed part of it because it can handle tremendous volume, such that if NVIDIA's newer chips come in, they'll build the additional stacks with the newer chips first. But if not, they'll do it with whatever it's called, the 100s. Anyway, you've got in that data stack, you've got compliance and governance layer. Now, I can't really read the smaller print here, I don't think. Data Privacy Canada. Yeah, it's going to be too tough for me. And over here on this side, you see they went ahead and put TELUS Railtown to show it to us, because they're calling it compute fabric, but this governance and compliance layer is part of what Railtown does. And so should it be here? I'm not positive, but AI thought it should. Then as we go up to the next layer, they kind of break that into where the human beings work. And starting up here at Cohere, which I would have put down here, but I don't know. Cohere, I don't know if they're going to use Cohere, but Cohere is Canadian. So I guess that's why they picked it. Large language model inference management zone. Well, this is where the information from the data comes up in a mishmash, but it's not. In other words, down here you have all the data in the world, and up here, when you bring up the name Roger Moore, you have everything collected up here related to Roger Moore, including you knock down men like Roger Moore. But then I guess, I don't know why they put it underneath, but it's fine. The observation layer is here. The orchestration and workflow layer is here. The real-time ingestion layer is, they've put it up above because you've got a panel tracking it. And then you've at up above, we'll leave up above for now. So what that does, what all of this does, is brings out that Amy Winehouse had in one of her lyrics a reference to Roger Moore as an example. But that's a silly example, but it's how all the data in the world gets up to a subset of data, and then the answer comes because of this. Now, in reality, you're trying to actually do things, create use cases, create agents that work with agents, agents that do all this work down here, creating revenue, creating profitability. And all of these layers come in at the TELUS data center, in theory anyway. And you can even see in the background conductor, working with the data from the data towers, the large language models, they use all of that to turn it all into something useful. And then at the top, which is kind of the user interface, you have Railtown AI, Sovereign AI operating system, and enterprise platform. You have the agent development zones, agent deployment testing, agent publication. And some of those writing is too small for me to read. But I think it's summarized here. Railtown management, agent, I think it says management, managed, agent tools and templates. And that's orchestration, workflows, real-time ingestion, observation, and compliance. This is a pretty powerful, if you hate the word synergy like I do, you don't want to use it, but this is an example of synergy. Each one of these pieces is interesting, but it's only when you put them all together, you see the power of creating billions upon billions, 10 billions of revenue. And it seems like Railtown is the oil or the lubricant or the glue that holds it all together or allows it to operate without friction, without mistakes, and without having to spend your tokens too much, and without a lot of downtime. So this, Ricky, is what I found for your data stack. Pat M. Hey, Pat, how are you? Jack Hamilton. Good afternoon, Mr. William and all. Good afternoon to you, Julius. I like the shirt. Yeah, it's getting hot all of a sudden. Eddie Eagle. Hi, Fast Eddie. Good day, Dollar Bill. Jack Hamilton. Definitely a good weekend vibe shirt. Yeah, if I weren't invisible, I guess it would be. Silver Skyrocket. Hello, William. Hello, everyone. Silver Skyrocket. Yes, nice shirt, William. John Salemi. I know it's not financial advice, but when are you expecting movement? I think as soon as the laxative kicks in. Or the prunes. I think trying to remember the dates. There's 2 conferences coming up. One's at the end of this month, and there's one in the middle of next month. I think either one of those could be the prelude. Let me say it differently. Either one of those, it might be necessary to make a press release prior to, but I don't know it. Don't know. So it could be the end of this month or the middle of next month on that theory. There is evidence on particularly on LinkedIn, but other feeds, that Railtracks is already being downloaded completely separately from TELUS. And maybe I can find it for you. That's the problem. I don't know which one of these. I think it's this one. It's, they give you these little thumbnails. It's impossible to see what they say until I open them. All right, this is Noah Lund Serdal, UC Berkeley. I thought he was MIT, so UC Berkeley. He posted this: one, best use of rail tracks at multimodal AI hackathon yesterday. And this was just a little while ago. Out of 70 teams, great experience to share with my teammate, Jurgen. Built CogniView, a multimodal co-pilot that watches your screen, listens to the conversation, and warns you when your wife is coming home. Helps with live context, lets you ask questions, fact checks claims, and generates a final summary when you're finished. Extremely helpful for meetings. The idea was to build something more useful than a transcript tool. A co-pilot that can follow both the screen and the conversation in real time. Really test what's possible with multimodal systems. Used rail tracks for the fact checking and the final summary workflows. Fun event. So the best use of the Railtracks agentic framework won first prize. I can't read these, John, so I don't know what I'm going to be pulling up. But let me go with this one. Okay, Dr. Tom Core put out, congratulations to Railtown and the successful hackathon in Canada. And then they have a March newsletter. Railtown AI Technologies open source agentic framework, Railtracks, saw 2,300 plus downloads in a single day following Canada's largest AI hackathon. The event brought together 800 developers, 55 teams, 250 projects. 2 of the top 10 teams built their project on rail tracks. So the result, I'm cut something off, but the platform, the result was 65% reduction in rework, 10% plus scrap reduction, 10% faster root cause analysis, and it supported, well, I don't know what that means, 450 production lines globally. From enabling developers with rail tracks to driving measurable impact with partners like Acerta, we're continuing to build a stronger AI ecosystem. Doctor, this might be the same one, but I'll read it again. Congratulations to Railtown AI and the rest of the Vancouver Agenics Foundation on their work on multi-agent systems. Can't wait to see what's next. Railtown posted, multi-agent systems are hitting a turning point, and Vancouver's builder community is pushing the boundaries with real experiments, real failures, and real progress. This recap highlights the Agenics Foundation and lessons emerging from real-world experimentation. So I looked up what's on their website, and this was what was there. Driving innovation in multimodal AI at the Multimodal Hackathon. There should be some women in that picture. This was April 8th, 2026. San Francisco recently saw the convergence of creativity and cutting-edge technology at the Multimodal Frontier Hackathon, hosted by somebody in partnership with Google something. The event brought together developers and AI enthusiasts to explore innovative applications of multimodal technologies. The hackathon winners stood out. I'm missing something, but anyway, we'll move on. Not only for their technical skill, but also for the creative approaches to solving complex problems. These teams leveraged the Railtracks framework to streamline development, allowing them to bring ambitious ideas to life in a short time frame. First place, CogniView. CogniView created an interactive visualization tool that allows users to explore multimodal data sets with ease by integrating different data types such as images, text, and charts into a unified interface. I guess that's the end of the sentence. CogniView makes complex insights more accessible and actionable. The Railtracks framework helped the team rapidly test and iterate across data inputs, enabling a polished, intuitive final product in just a few days. Second place, Vigil. Vigil developed a situational awareness platform that combines live data streams with an intelligent alert system. The tool aggregates information from multiple sources and presents it through a clear, interactive dashboard, helping users quickly respond to evolving conditions. Using Railtracks, Virgil's developers were able to prototype integrations across modalities efficiently, ensuring a smooth reliable experience for end users. Now, I might be wrong, but I think the developers got to choose which tools they wanted to use at these hackathons. I'm not going to read whatever's down here because I can't read it. I can't see it. So third place was MediMemo. MediMemo addressed the challenges of healthcare documentation by transforming various inputs such as patient notes, images, and recordings into organized, searchable records. This multimodal approach reduces administration friction and supports better patient care. Our hero, Railtracks, provided a flexible foundation for testing data pipelines and refining workflows, letting the team focus on user experience and real-world applicability. So, fueling rapid prototyping and experimentation. While the hackathon celebrated creativity and problem solving, Railtracks quietly provided the underlying support that allowed these teams to move quickly from concept to prototype. The framework's ability to manage complexity and streamline experimentation illustrates how the right tools can empower developers to tackle ambitious challenges in record time. By sponsoring the multimodal hackathon, well, I guess that's where people chose it then, Railtracks reaffirmed its commitment to fostering innovation at the intersection of AI and software development, supporting teams that are shaping the next frontier of multimodal applications. So anyway, John, that's happening now. That whole parallel, and 2 or 3 weeks ago, they had 2,300 users overnight. Imagine what they have now. So that's going on, and the awareness of that probably isn't publicized until whatever material, non-public information breaks the logjam. But I bet it's word of mouth is spreading pretty quickly. I don't think that will necessarily make the stock price go up. So what do I think the time frame is? If you tell me, and again, this is my speculation, that it's TELUS holding it all up, or it might not be TELUS themselves. It might be regulators. It might be attorneys, as ever. It might be some duking it out over final, wording. It could be that Rail Engine was not ready to go into that stack, early, and now that it is, they're taking, I don't know, a month, 6 weeks to put it through its paces. It could be anything. But to me, John, if you can tell me when TELUS with a flair says, you know, our Rimouski Sovereign AI Data Center has been open for business for, I don't know, 8 months, 9 months, but we were just test driving it. We're now ready for a full-on acceptance of new customers. Again, I'm going to make this up. And we'll give, I don't know, 90 days free to anybody that moves over in the next, you know, by, I don't know, by June 15th. And they start banging the drum and playing the trombone and moving the, you know, the cheerleader batons, and it starts getting out. 2 things will be accomplished, John. One will be the world, I think, will see proof of concept and be able to project revenue. But the other thing, it will finally end what I call, apparently incorrectly, what I call the quiet period. It'll finally end that. When do I think that's likely? It could. I think it could happen any Monday. But it feels like it's not happening in April. It feels like that. So it could be this coming Monday/Tuesday. But it feels like, I think, the first week in May, the first Monday, Tuesday in May. That's what I would, if I had to guess, I think it'll start showing strength by Cinco de Mayo, or starting with Cinco de Mayo. But if you're talking about movement and you're seeing this as a trade, I think you're going to cheat yourself. This is not a hot stock. This is not a day trade stock. It will have big upward movement once it starts, but it'll probably have a lot of volatility from 30 cents to $5, $6. But after that, I'm not sure how volatile, well, let me say it differently. There may be volatility, but I'm not sure how many shares are going to be available for you to play with after $5 or $6. So I think it's a hazardous game to treat Railtown like another piece of shit, short squeeze, hot buzz. You know, the billionaires are buying, and they're in AI, they're in gold, they're in treasury, Bitcoin, they're in biotechnologies. And, you know, as one broker at Merrill Lynch used to always say when he gave his ideas, they've got no debt. And then the next thing you knew, the stock's up and you don't trade out. The stock goes from $1.50 to $12, and you don't get out. You don't get out at 8. You don't get out at 6, and then it's 50 cents. It's not one of those stocks. When Railtown goes up, it's going to stay up. In broadly, it's going to be volatile. It's not going to go straight up. But if Railtown achieves the valuation of Langchain last year, when Langchain was projected to do annual recurring revenues of 12 million to 16 million, when it was priced, that was the projection. It wasn't doing it. They just extrapolated the way it reads. They either extrapolated June's revenues or they extrapolated the first part of the year through June. But all they could calculate was annual recurring revenues would be between 12 million and 16 million, no profit. And the 125 million they were raising was to build out their product. Railtown's product's already built. But in any event, Langchain achieved a valuation of 1.25 billion post money. They worked it all summer, but they announced it in October. You tell me where the valuation occurred. But now, this is with Langchain, this is possibly the hottest part of the investment story in the AI stack. And I would imagine that Langchain has doubled or tripled in valuation. But it's in the pipeline, a private pipeline, Sequoia, Benchmark, IVF, and a bunch of others. But if you just use that last valuation that we know about, 1.25 billion, and you use Railtown's stated, I think the fully diluted number to use is 227 million. So if you use that, John, once the story is released, once there's some evidence, but remember, revenue is going to start coming monthly. I don't know of any data centers or, telecom services that you pay for annually. Or if you do, they're booked monthly at a discount. But anyway, if you use 227 million shares as fully diluted, that's $5.50 a share target. And John, I think that's where the stock is headed, just to catch up with, in my opinion, an inferior product valuation. That's just catching up. And you're not gonna be in a position where your 550 is going to evaporate like your phantom profits, as it turned out, in GTII or Finger or Collective Audience or MMAT or MMTL, the whole list. This isn't one of those. So don't treat it like a hot trading vehicle. I think you'll regret it. From that 550 number, I stand by my target of $55 a share. I used to have some concerns that a lot of that $55 would be achieved in the belly of a Microsoft, in the belly of an Oracle, in the belly of a NVIDIA or someone. I'm not so sure anymore because, again, I don't want to put any opinions out there about what I think's happening in the world because it has no impact on stocks. So, don't want to hear it, don't want to hear it, don't want to hear it. I find that insane, but I should keep that opinion to myself. But my view is that Railtown will not sell early unless there's an overall collapse in everything. Then maybe the prices make sense at a lower number. But I still say that we will get the majority, if not more, of that $55 target that I have in a buyout. I would give it, my feeling, 50-50, John, that the company becomes a unicorn and stands on its own. This is a company, if I'm correct, is going to be doing 25 million, not initially projectable, but at some point in the not too distant future, they're going to be doing 25 million a month in cash flow, in 100% margin revenue. If you're doing 25 million a month in cash, you can hire a lot of engineers. You can go do an acqui-hire of your biggest competitor. Maybe you buy. I hope they don't, because it'd be too much leverage, but it's not hard to believe that they couldn't afford the interest on some cash loan and issue stock, and they go buy line chain. 25 a month, 25 million a month in free cash flow. That is a lot of power, my friend. And they could stand alone, but they could also be bought out. So my point is, once you get to 550 a share, I wouldn't day trade that for anything below $55 a share. But that's me. I mean, obviously everybody's got their own situation, and we got to adjust our targets. We're not going to have an opinion on what overall world events do to the stock market. We'll just let them play out. But as we get more information on the stock market and how it affects AI and AI startups in real time, not in projection. We're not in the projection business. We're just in the, catch up as it goes business for now. I don't know how long I can keep my mouth shut. We got to pay attention. But I think from 550, you have $55, probably in a buyout that you don't have to pay taxes on. I don't know why you'd be day trading it. I have no idea why you'd day trade that. To go to 550 from 30 cents is 18x. To go to 55 from 550 is another 10x from that level. Those are some big returns, and I don't know why you'd risk those returns on the latest breathless recommendation that you need to get into AME one more time. Anyway, to answer your question, any Monday. It could happen. It could start from any Monday ahead. My guess, it's the first Monday in May. First Monday, Tuesday in May it starts. But I don't know. I've been so wrong in the projections. But I think it's soon. And for the rest of your investment life. Scott Day. Oh, I don't want to go to Scott Day yet. I want to go to 808. 808 morning. Well, that's a nice total. That is amazing total. I'm a little jealous of that total. 159. That's great. Bravo. Bravo. Good job, 808. Ricky Brogan. He says, Hawaii, congratulations. Hawkeye 50. Can't happen. Shares are equity interests, not just pieces of paper. Every stock in an ETF is not going to zero. I don't remember saying that ETFs are going to go to zero, but now that you bring it up, I think there in a correction in the market that's massive, a collapse of the market, I think a lot of ETFs are going to go out of business, and you're going to get caught up in legal battles to get your money, particularly in ETFs that claim to have ownership of precious metals. But it'll apply to most ETFs. I think ETFs are the great processing facility, fudge factor for counterfeit shares. So I think you're wrong, Hawkeye. I don't think you know, respectfully, I don't think you know how bad ETFs are. And many ETFs are, 1x, 2x, 3x and higher. So they admit they're leveraged, and you're just wrong. They can blow up. But in a time when everything works and leverage works, it feels great. But in a time when leverage goes against, as a friend of mine at Merrill Lynch used to say, he's a great broker in DC, live by the sword, die by the sword when you have leverage. And it'll come. So I respectfully disagree with you, Hawkeye, but that's what makes the market. Different opinions. Chess night. Now but I never said they're going to zero. I don't think I did anyway. But you can have significant losses, and they can stop trading, and you can be tied up for a long time. I'd be really careful of ETFs, particularly as it relates to precious metals. Chess night. Good morning, William, and thanks for the Ricky Brogan. Oh, and thanks to Ricky Brogan for thumbs up yesterday. Picked up 150 more. That's great, Chess night. I don't know what's better. When somebody buys 150 shares or when somebody buys 50,000. I'm proud of both of them. Richard K. Clear the runway for William. I don't know what that means. Donna M. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, Donna. Ricky Brogan. Donna M. Good afternoon. Donna M. Hi, Ricky. We're green. Ricky Brogan. Thumbs up to Donna. Ward Richardson. Good afternoon, William RT Crew. I have been digging into the 184 or so affiliates. I'm through about 40 of them now. What I'm seeing here so far, I did that, by the way, back when. I did a lot of looking into each of them. I had one investor tell me, oh, they're just all crap. They're all just, most of them are just useless websites. He just got very negative, very negative. But I also think he has, more so than myself, and I haven't spoken to him in a long time, but I think he has more knowledge about technology and how ephemeral technology profits can be. But I think one, and you got to be careful whenever any time anybody says this time is different, but one significant difference with this AI transformation versus, for example, cell towers as a transformation from landlines is the infrastructure, the broad infrastructure. I'm not talking about software or data centers, but the backbone has already been built. The light pipes are built. The city streets have already been torn up. All of that was built for the internet revolution. And it's there. So that's one thing, is it is believable that these revenues across all AI can ramp up quickly because the backbone of the to and fro, it's already there. The second thing is, when you think about software as an industry, it's the biggest on the planet in multiple languages, multiple zones, multiple countries. The last few transformations, you probably could argue that it was focused on maybe 800 million to 1 billion people, potentially. But I'd say it's the whole world now, particularly with Starlink, the satellites. Many countries are skipping landlines altogether. And that broad usage of phones and iPads and computers and apps, it's there. All of it has to be upgraded. All of it has to be upgraded. And there's a huge campaign to get away from Trump, to put it simply. That's not opinion. I'm just simplifying the statement. Get away from the CIA, get away from the large U.S. technology companies who tend to be run by a certain subgroup of Americans who support a certain foreign policy, but I have no opinion on it. But it changes how the rest of the world views relying on I think I can dare say this, and it's probably opinion, but the United States over the last 20 years or so has forfeited trust. I'm not going to explain it anymore. If you don't agree with me, you don't agree with me. But I think a lot of other countries want sovereign AI because of that. So I just think, you look at these 184 companies. Now, I did it before, and my friend, who no longer, I guess my erstwhile friend, he was just so negative on all those companies because he quickly scrolled through. I agree with you. A lot of the companies are quite substantial. They're new, but I think the AI revolution transformation is for real, and it's just going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And I think the let's call it 200 companies, taken as a whole, are quite substantive. So let me read Ward's point again. Good afternoon, William and RT crew. I've been digging in to the 184 or so affiliates. I'm through about 40 of them. What I am seeing here so far is they are heavily tied into thousands and thousands of Canadian companies. Think about that. That's great research, Ward. But just think about it. If you imply thousands and thousands of companies and they're hiring these affiliates and the affiliates move to the TELUS data center, will those companies be far behind? Don't know. Ricky Brogan, Warren, good afternoon. Great job digging through the 1 in 4 companies. So I think Ricky missed a few. I think he's directing that to you, Ward. Ward Richardson, William, the one that stuck out with me was AI outcome. Ollie income frio. AI outcome. Here is the list of their partnerships. AI outcome. Microsoft, NVIDIA, Siemens, Digital Digital, Reality, AWS, Tata, Google, Accenture, Deloitte, Palantir, Stellantis, Meta, Broadcom, IBM. It's amazing. And NASA, amazing. That's one company, AI outcome. Ricky Brogan, thank you, William, for taking the time to explain the data set. Well, that's just an image that AI created, but I think you see, number one, it's not simple. Number two, you see the potential that Railtown not only is an important piece to make that whole data center, which has billions of dollars invested in it, to make it work as a profitable supercomputer, it might be that Railtown is the critical piece, which is my theory, which is to say, it is all mine. Unknown Stuntman. Hi, Uncle Bill and RT crew. Hello. Ward Richardson. William, here's another one I like. This is another one of the AI affiliates. Solid State AI. Their partnerships include Foxconn, Samsung, Navitas, Global Foundries, ABB, Siemens, and NVIDIA. Ricky Brogan, I like the orange and white shirt. You look like a Tennessee Volunteers fan. Go Volunteers. Yeah, well, I don't know. I'm usually the fan of whoever's the underdog. Scott Day added another 3,300. Bravo! Look at that position. Anything 10,000. Well, any position is going to be great, but imagine if my target is correct over time. That could be $500,000. Look, there's a lot of slip between cup and lip, or whatever the thing is. But, you know, you got to have a reason for buying, is my opinion. That's fantastic, Scott Day. You have to have a reasonable reason for buying. It's all going to come down to revenue and revenue projections. And that's just not out there right now. It just doesn't. So that's your opportunity to buy. That's the inefficiency of the market. Wall Street wants you to think it's always efficient. But if you're a day trader, that's a different picture. Yeah, day trading, sure. You can make those arguments. But if you're an investor, it's a mispriced stock, particularly if the revenue comes on like gangbusters and the projections become credible. You're going to be so happy, Scott, to own 10,000 shares. Congratulations to you. Ward Richardson, William, RT Software. RT Software is operating over 450 manufacturing production lines. Now 300 or so just in Dana Corp. This company, Dana Corp, has 66 manufacturing companies globally. Dana Corp, largest automotive supplier in the world for original equipment manufacturing, rail engine. Ward Richardson, William, by the way, Dana Corp has thousands of production lines in their companies, which I assume you mean they're all going to be robots. You know, it's 3:00 and I haven't looked at the quotes. I got to sign back in. Darn it. Donna said it was in the green. Let's see. It's not. All right, I'll go on to the next one. It's not coming up. It's Donna. Donna, that's impressive. Thanks, Ward. My Fidelity app hasn't posted Railtown news for 46 days. I'm content to keep holding. I have no intention of doing anything with the stock, just letting it ride. I think that's the right way to be. So they have Railtown in the red, but I don't see that. Well, let's see. The overall, the Dow's up a little bit, NASDAQ up a little bit. S&P, it's over 7,000. HLP, that one is 108. So it's had a bit of a turnaround from 92 cents to $1.08. Yeah, of course, that's down. Railtown is 30 cents, 0.3046, and it's just in the red. Finger is up 9 cents to 109. MTEN is up 3 cents to 124.21. And Railtown is 30 on the bid, 0.302 on the bid, 44,000 shares. The ask is almost 32 cents, 31.81.55, and the volume's 100,000 shares. The last trade that I show at about 140 is 3,275 shares at 0.3046. Ward Richardson, Donna M. Yes, it's very impressive. I just hope everyone here understands what the magnitude of these partnerships within partnerships mean. Bob, hi, William, and everyone else. Hi. Bob, great information, Ward. Thanks. Ricky Brogan, Scott Day, congratulations. I agree. I think that's a huge milestone. And Ward Richardson, robots will probably operate the lines. Also found out most of these companies are tied up in robotic companies. And it makes you wonder, I suppose, a little bit, if that's why the BlackBerry guys are there. Even maybe just their talent at turning software into revenue, but maybe they know how to make that link to robotics happen. You can't argue that BlackBerry didn't achieve a certain scale when it was in full flush. And, maybe that's one thing that they can offer. Well, that gets me, without any political commentary, that kind of gets me through what I wanted to talk about. I might have a little bit more here. Let me just look. I didn't take everything because I guess I can show this to Ricky. And I guess I can show that to Scott. And then these, I'm just telling you guys, the inefficiency of information is leading the Google searches, etc., giving potential, somebody that's, hey, I heard about that. Let me see what's going on. They're just giving them such a low side story. Of course, that means you have to believe that my assessment, in my case, because I can only speak for myself, that my assessment of what the revenues could be is correct. And I guess that's our, sky high rope bridge we're going to cross. But once you're on the other side, you don't have to cross that bridge anymore. All right, I'm going to try to show this to Ricky. I'll take this down. Scott Day, thank you. Of course. I'm going to try to show this to Ricky. This is kind of what's going to happen, but it's so hard to describe. But it's Railtown plus TELUS. They have a partnership. This is an old, really old presentation last year. But so it might be out of date, might not be right. But TELUS conductor comes over. It's the upsell by TELUS. They're going to upsell the conductor platform to their clients. Here's the TELUS AI factory, large language models and compute power. That makes sense. And then you have TELUS upselling conductor to their clients. And on top, you have the conductor ADK. And then over on the whole Railtown side over here, you have conductor overseeing it all. And I can't read the small print there, but it's the whole platform. And you have the cloud agent hosting. And this is the whole business down here where Railtown can get into the consulting business, but I don't know enough about that, but that's a whole brand new area. So conductor, if you see here, conductor cloud agent hosting runs through the TELUS AI factory data center. You see that. And it says up here that they have a compute partnership. I mean, I guess if you want to be skeptical that they're working on the compute partnership. I mean, everybody can take information whatever way they want. But here is the building process. So you build and publish AI agents with AIP. So you build, you can use Railtracks or you can use LangTracks. You create agentic frameworks. But LangTracks in this case, I don't know why it has that R. Is LangTracks, I guess LangTracks is a Railtracks product, not a LangChain product. Let me Google that. LangTracks. LangTracks is an agentic AI framework developed by Railtown AI Technologies. Interesting. I'm so lazy. I thought that was their competitor. So how you do it, you build with Railtracks and LangTracks. And then you deploy over here. It says TELUS Sovereign AI Factory. It also says Bell, but I don't know. And it also says Amazon, Google, and Azure. You deploy on hyperscalers. And the observing agent is conductor. And you can publish in this marketplace, which is what Ward just called your attention to. It's your native marketplace. That's a huge jump start on anybody else. So this is a data center. The users are on top. It's the 180 affiliates. And you have in the middle, and this of course skips the large language models, but in the middle you have Railtown. You have the conductor cloud, the conductor DPE, the conductor RAG, the conductor ADK, the conductor RCA. And then at the bottom, you have the sovereign AI factory, TELUS, and you have shared compute revenue. See here, shared compute revenue. So it's fully integrated. It's, you know, this isn't something that I'm fantasizing about. And then here's APIs conductor. You have storage, LLMs, API, Docker. This is all TELUS. But then this is all Railtown in the middle. And you've got the large language models that they wrote here, Llama, DeepSeek, and Cohere as examples. But Conductor's built to work with all of them. There's some other things I can show you, but I don't have them here. This, I just want to show you, number 6. Number 6, opportunity to move acquired and non-acquired affiliates who currently spend approximately $120 million per year with various hyperscalers to a common low-cost platform. Who could that be? TELUS. And that's when they had 160. Well, no, up here it says 170 affiliates. 170 affiliates. And there you see the number, 120 million they spend per year. So this information you have is not, I mean, it can be wrong. It can be wrong. I can't vouch for its veracity, but it's due diligence information. So you have to give it the weighting that you think is important, but it's not made up. It's not made up. This is factual. I'm not going to comment on it, but it's factual. International Energy Agency says Europe has 6 weeks of remaining jet fuel. It's factual. This is good news. It's factual too. President Trump announces 10-day ceasefire between Middle Eastern countries. No comment. No comment. The ballroom is limited. Wow. I'll have to study that. There's, I guess, something new coming to make money on. Larry Fink's talking about it. 100 times bigger than Bitcoin. I'll have to look into that. It'll be a briefing that I have to listen to for an hour and a half. All right, let me see. There's 4 little pages here. What I want to emphasize is the reluctance of the data banks to be optimistic, which is fine. This is at the end of a long thread. It started out even more negative, but I just don't want to go through the whole thread. If you assume 5% of TELUS's 2 billion AI target plus 40 million from AIP, you still end up with a very punchy per share value on today's share count. So if you assume TELUS gets to 2 billion in the data center, Railtown only captures 5% of that as revenue. That's 100 million. And AIP's revenue is 40 million, which is 20% of maybe 200 million a couple of years from now. And you add in maybe 2 million from other areas, the total annual recurring revenue could be for Railtown 142 million. And let's say a year or two out. And the margin on this is 100%. The discount rate 15%. So you use your cash flow analysis here, and your 227 million shares fully diluted. It gives you an implied value. And remember, this is discounting this future now. It gives you an implied value per share now, because here's the discount. It's here somewhere. Discount rate 15%. So it gives you an implied value now of $5.69 per share. Which I think is low, but I'll take it. So even if TELUS actually hits 2 billion, Railtown only captures 5%, and AIP gets to 40 million, I put in that number, then a plain vanilla, steady state, discounted cash flow with no further upside and a fairly stiff 15% discount rate justifies something around a mid-single digit US dollar per share on the current 230 million fully diluted. Where I stay skeptical is not the internal logic. This is a stupid computer. TELUS, AIP, and Railtown's own slides make your current structure coherent. But on the path and probability of actually getting 5%, well, I think that's just limited thinking. But we don't know for sure. I believe Railtown is that layer. They obviously see no evidence of that. So look, 5%, if with just 5% you get to $5.69, that's pretty impressive. That's precise. So but if you get this by 2030, that's precisely the spread where someone with your read of the players and channel can have an edge. And then they asked, would you? And I said, go ahead, do it. So they redid it, assuming 30% dilution in shares. And then you put 30% on top. But you still have 142 million in annual recurring revenue. They suggested that. So they adjusted it to 295 million shares. You're still using 2 billion revenue through the data center. You're assuming Railtown gets 5% of that. You're assuming AIP Network contributes 40 million a year. So your core business is only 2 million. So you're assuming you get by the end of the decade to Railtown's annual recurring revenue of 142 million at 100% margin, roughly. So if you then try to be a little harsher on your discount and use that higher per share number, you use 295 million shares, which isn't the case now. So your new per share value is $4.37 today. That's now, I'm not saying the stock price is going to open up at that price any day. I'm just saying this calculation gives you a present value under those assumptions of this target. Obviously, nobody believes it right now, or the people that believe it can't buy it. So just to repeat, if you assume Telus' data center by the end of the decade does 2 billion in revenue, Railtown gets 5% of that. The AIP network contributes 40 million additionally to Railtown's numbers, and Railtown manages to eke out 2 million somewhere else. And then you assume 100% margin, a 15% discount rate, a really tiny growth rate, 30% more dilution. You still get in the $4 to $4.50 range right now. I think it's a mispriced stock. Ricky Brogan, thank you, William, for showing the diagram. You're welcome. Ward Richardson, Ricky, thumbs up. Ward to Bob, thumbs up. Ricky Brogan, NER. NER? NER will do. NER will do. Ricky Brogan, anyone planning on selling out of RT at 450 is like not getting in the gate to watch the baseball game because you scalped your ticket for a bag of popcorn. It's a good analogy. Of course, if you go watch the game, you don't get any money. That's where that analogy fails down. Look, I'm not saying everybody's got to have their own money management strategy. And I'm not allowed to make opinion projections of the things going on in the world. So I won't. But there are scenarios where having some cash and no debt makes a lot of sense. But I don't think the time to do that kind of thinking is at $5.50. I really don't. I have a target of $55, but frankly, that may be way too low, believe it or not. So I'll leave it there. Buckeye in Puerto Rico. Ricky, Game 7 of the World Series. Exactly. Buckeye, 100%. Neil Gondak, afternoon. Seems Rail is going to drop news. Now, this is interesting. So, my experience with Neil's information is he doesn't say anything without some inkling, So it would certainly fit my belief that even though I started in September, there's no way in hell the system is going to allow me to get any shares in tradable form before Railtown, as Neil puts it, drops news. I would take that information that that opinion that Neil's giving pretty seriously. And I would say you got 40 minutes to act on it, but maybe you have tomorrow as well, you know. But we have a good, we have a good position. It'd be nice today. People added a little bit, and I assume we'll be over 19,300,000. I wouldn't mind it if we got to 20 million or 21 million, but I think most of us are played out. Let me just see. I've got 40 minutes to get to the end of this. And I should have marked it. That's the thing. What day was it? It was a rolling nightmare. I guess it was this. So maybe, I don't know which day it was that impressed me so much. Well, I guess October 24th. We have 30 minutes. Here's some information. Neil Gronick, CB. That's short for Charles Bronson, Corey Brandolini next week as analysts at conference. Who can tell what the insignia on his hat represents? It looks confident. It's a good point. The Discovery X conference is next week. If anyone wants to see the program, he's there in the hat. Yeah, I showed it because of somebody else bringing it to my attention yesterday. And you're right. Is it next week or the following week? It's the Sunday, right? Here, I can tell you. April 29th is when it starts. And April 29th is the following week, actually. So it's the end of April. But that's not a long time to wait. And I agree with you, Neil. If he's going to be speaking on the 29th, there's a schedule there. Let me see if it says when he's speaking. Of course, I can't open the schedule because everything's frozen. Okay. Agenda. It's not a schedule, it's an agenda. So Wednesday, April 29th. Claudia Krywiak will speak at 1 p.m. 1:15, Christian Weedbrook, CEO of Xanadu Quantum talks. 1:45 to 2:10, Natasha Walji, Managing Director, Google Canada, speaks with another woman. There's a picture, but I can't see her name. At 2:30, Ian Lane speaks, Executive Director, Northern Ontario Angels. But then there's a picture of another participant, a woman I can't see. Sorry, her name. 2:30, nothing. 3:00, Yusuf Helwa speaks, Fluid AI Medical, and there's a picture of a gentleman, I can't see his name. 4 p.m., Greg Agiba speaks, Windmill Farms CEO. There's a picture of a guy, I can't see who it is. 4 p.m. also, Christine Hill, Vice President Business Unit, Arcadis speaks, and there's a guy next to her, I can't see his name. At 4 p.m., Rainey Mistry, investor, BDC panelist, she speaks, and then there's a guy next to him. So it doesn't seem like Corey speaks on the first day, unless there's some pictures off to the side that I'm not seeing. The next day, which is Thursday, April 30th, 9:30 a.m., the Ontario Center of Innovation, Michael Jones speaks. 9:30 a.m., Danny Christidis speaks, another guy there. 9:30 also, Farron Buka, Maple Leaf Angels speaks. There's another guy next to him, can't see it. 9:30 a.m., Siobhan Shin, CEO of Flick FX speaks. There's another guy next to him. 10:10, Nanda Nagarajan, Scientific Research Development Program speaks. 10:30, Federal Economic Development Agent for Southern Ontario, Jeff King, speaks. And then 10:30, Agentic AI in Pharma Operations Excellence, Shreyas Becker. And then 10:30, Capital Cycles and AI, Venture Capital Perspectives. And the next phase, Zishan Ali and another guy. I'm starting to think I'm missing. I'm gonna miss where Corey's speaking. 10:30, it's Anya Geertz and another guy. 10:50, it's Natural Sciences Engineering Research Council, Louisa Ho, Senior Program Analyst. 11:10, Jacqueline Jones, Initiatives Officer. 11:30, Networking. 1 o'clock, Jeffrey Hinton, Nobel Prize laureate and godfather of AI, and a woman next to him. Can't see her name. 2:30, Dumitru Olariu, Canadian Intellectual Property Office. 2:30, Simon Bourgeois, Chief Executive Officer, NMBRO, speaks. 2:30, Made in Ontario, Advanced Manufacturing and the Automation Advantage, Jeff Nelson, President of Nelson Industrial, speaks, and another guy. 2:30, Onshore Power, Critical Minerals and Critical Technology, Cheryl Hart, CEO of OnTask Strategies. 2:50 to 3:10, National Research Council, Pauline Walsh, Industrial Technology Advisor. 3:10, Ryan Lipsey and somebody next to him, Ministry of Northern Economic Development and Growth. 3:30 to 3:50, Adam Nikailu, Manager, Ontario Technology Industry, speaks, BDC. 3:30, From Dropout to Disruptor, Building a Company Outside the Expected Path, Mo Sabagini, and a woman next to him. That woman shows up a lot. I guess she might be part of the conference. 3:30 to 4:30, AI Sovereignty and Scale, Canada's Next Innovation Challenge, Hemant Agrawal from TELUS. And then there's a picture of a woman, I can't see her name. 3:50, Center of Excellence and Mining Innovation, Kyle McCall. And that's it. So let me see how I can find, he must be part of one of the panels. Let's see if they've updated his entry. It doesn't see, when you click it, nothing happens. I'm going to like it. That doesn't work. Okay, so he's going to be speaking at the AI Sovereignty and Scale session, Canada's Next Innovation Challenge. He's a moderator. Canada is at a turning point. We have the research, but do we have the power to scale? This session explores how Canada can move from a research powerhouse to a global commercial leader by securing the entire AI stack, from the necessity of domestic compute infrastructure to the strategic capital required to keep intellectual property on home soil. Our panel will discuss what it takes to build, scale, and own the future of AI in an increasingly competitive global landscape. This session will be held at Spotlight Theater. It's 3:30 p.m. to 4:30 p.m. Thursday, April 30th, moderated by Corey Brandolini. Pretty interesting. It's official. Corey Brandolini, keynote speaker. I don't see it there, but okay. I think he's a moderator, but I'm not contradicting you. It's not posted on this. He's one of many speakers. There's no question. And it's great. It's great. I just don't see that he's the keynote. But this is a great session. Remember, Railtown scales like a mofo. Ricky Brogan, Neil, good find, thumbs up. Neil, what is he going there for? The hospitality suite? Come on, the time is now. I agree with you. But Neil, at the same time, my theory is, which could be wrong, but I think that the people around NVIDIA, around Microsoft, around possibly HPE or even AMD in the whole stack, the people maybe around Cohere, or maybe people around OpenAI, or people around the other one, can't think of the name. All I can think of is agnostic. That's not it. They might all, and tell us, they might all be seeing the potential and bringing additional business to Corey. Railtown might be overwhelmed with, not in a bad way, but just having so much to process. That could be one thing. I suppose, if government regulation is involved, that can take a while. If there's any legal work to be done, that can take a while. If they're testing various parts of the whole stack, for example, rail engine, that could take a little while. And I would just suggest, I'd rather they get it right, even if they take the hospitality suite at this conference, and it's the next conference where they're able to roll it out. I'd rather they got the foundation built, because number one, you only have one chance to make a good impression. And number two, in other words, when developers take this out of the box, they want it to work. And number two, it's going to scale. You want it to scale. You don't want any glitches. So I agree with you. The time is now. But if it's another 6 weeks or 2 months, I think there's rational reasons for that to happen. And I don't think it'll condemn the story at all. So anyway, it's possible it'll take longer. Neil, 144,000 volume in Canada, hitting 42 cents. That's a good price. Neil, back to above average volume with share price up bodes well from a technical support. I think that's true. Ward Richardson, thumbs up to Neil. Bob, look at 330 to 430. Yeah, you found it. You found it. Let's see where it's trading. hasn't really traded in the United States, which I take as a good sign. Or my service is wrong. Yeah, it hasn't changed. So let's look in Canada, like Neil says. It is up in Canada, 42 cents, 144,000 shares. That's about all you can tell about it. Um, I'll just read one page. There's a lot. I don't remember what I wanted to read to you, but this is 1929, Wednesday, October 23rd. And this is page 199 of this book. And there's a lot of interesting stuff before this. But then came Wednesday, October 23rd. The market had only been open an hour before panic selling hit the blue chips. Westinghouse was down 35, GE was down 20. It was the most sweeping and far reaching decline of the year, according to the New York Times, affected not only on the big board at the exchange, but on the curb and the over the counter market, leading to even more margin calls. In the final hour on the exchange, frenetic trading wiped out $1 billion in paper values, with 2.6 million shares sold. The final quotation was not printed by the ticker until an hour and 45 minutes after the markets closed. The Dow closed at 305.85, down 7% for the day. Certainly, some investors had taken their profits, but others were wiped out. A somewhat callous banker predicted that the abrupt deterioration deterioration of the market had a silver lining. Quote, it will send back to work many people who have been sitting around brokerage offices for a year or so on the trail of easy money, unquote, he said. Further quoting, I have heard thousands of reports of merchants, farmers, and men and women in all walks of life literally giving up their businesses to watch the stock market. Most of them will, by necessity, have to go back to earning their living in normal ways, unquote. One group cheered the developments in the market was bond dealers. For years, their customers have been lured away by stockbrokers promising higher returns. But in the past days and hours, bonds had steadily been advancing. The indefatigable Irving Fisher gave yet another speech. He continued to dismiss Babson's prediction of a 60 to 80 points drop off in the Dow. But now, even the great bull started to concede a fall was possible, but in his view, only if it occurred in small declines of 5 to 12% at a time. Anyway, it's the next day, October 24th, that it really started changing the mood. And that's what can happen in a market. I mean, I know you guys think ETFs are great and we don't have to worry about anything, but when the market's highly leveraged, things break down. As dawn broke Thursday, October 24th, the first rays of morning sunlight cast an angled glow across the facade of the New York Stock Exchange, briefly catching its white marble columns before slipping into shadow. The statue of George Washington, installed on the steps of the old sub-treasury building to commemorate the spot where he took the oath of office in 1789, was nearly in silhouette, backlit by the dawn and casting a long shadow toward the exchange. For a few fleeting minutes, the thousands of men filling the street, some already seated on the sub-treasury steps, had to squint against the glare. They waited in near silence, collars turned up against the cold, watching the building where their fortunes, and perhaps the country's, would rise or fall with the opening bell. Lamont, that's the banker, was astonished when he arrived at his office to see the throngs gathered, their faces etched with anxiety. He made his way into the entrance of 23 Wall Street. I think that was the House of Morgan, picking his way through the crowd of men wearing rumpled clothes from sleeping in hotel lobbies or park benches the night before. Not a few still drunk from making the rounds in the city's many speakeasies. Safe inside the secured door, Lamont heard the thrum of 1,000 conversations, people trading rumors. Police wagons began to arrive on the scene, parking across the entrance to Wall from Broadway, blocking all vehicles from entering. Officers wielding clubs piled from paddy wagons. One of the street's messenger boys asked a beat cop why he was there. In case there's trouble, came the reply. After the rout of Wednesday, Michael Levine, who oversaw the street's vast flock of young messenger boys, posted a sign, "Nobody goes home until I say so." Levine knew that if the previous day's collapse was repeated, up to 100,000 men and women who worked in and around the stock market would need to be fed and housed overnight. Every hotel room in the financial district had already been booked, and restaurants had been notified to expect big crowds. Foldable cots had been located and stacked in brokerage rooms. Just before the market opened at 10 a.m., Lamont and his partners crowded around the office's ticker, waiting, almost without taking a breath, for the first trade and what it would portend for the day. Out on the sidewalk, Pat Bologna, a Wall Street bootblack who had made a reputation as a tipster, turned his attention to the crowds as a sudden quiet fell among them as well. Quote, people just stood there, stopped talking, and looked toward the stock exchange. It was like the silence before the off at a big race, he later recalled. Bologna had a lot riding on the day. $5,000, his life savings, much of it invested in Mitchell's National City Bank stocks. He remembered Mitchell's advice after he'd shined the great man's shoes. Quote, a wise man never sells out at the first sign of trouble, Mitchell had said, handing him a dollar tip. That's for pikers. Exchange Superintendent William Crawford made his way across the trading floor toward the podium to take his position at the bell. The 1-acre space with paneled Georgian marble walls, huge windows, and a skylight 4 stories overhead, nonetheless seemed too small. The room appeared to be more congested and the traders more dejected and apprehensive than he had ever witnessed. As the clock counted down, specialists and their clerks manned their stockade-like posts, numbered from 1 to 16. Female telephone operators were seated around the periphery of the room, headsets at the ready. Above the trading floor, the visitors' gallery began filling up. As Crawford looked around, he could almost feel the electricity in the air, so thick you could cut it. The excitement was palpable. He had gotten a note that Winston Churchill would likely be arriving later in the day to watch the action from the gallery. Making his way through the pile of traders, Crawford saw an unusual sight at the bell. Richard Whitney, above the din of the traders. Whitney, the acting president of the exchange, instructed Crawford that he was not to leave the area near the podium for the entire day. Crawford knew there was only one reason he'd be given that order: to halt trading in case Whitney decided to close the exchange. Crawford watched the chronometer tick. At exactly 10 a.m., he punched the bell to signal the opening of trading. Men began yelling and gesticulating. Phones started ringing incessantly. The bloodbath had begun. Montgomery Ward immediately plummeted, with 6,000 shares trading hands. Other blue chips plunged with the same astonishing momentum as a blizzard of sell orders from around the country blanketed the market. At the first sell-off was driven by brokers liquidating the accounts of customers who couldn't meet their margin calls. But the panic became so persuasive pervasive, that brokers were willing to sell at any price. Soon, many stocks had no bids at all at any price. Brokers, still behind from processing the previous night's paperwork, struggled to keep up. Bologna, the bootblack, managed to wiggle into a customer room at a brokerage office near his corner to keep an eye on his investments. It was pandemonium. In the crowd, he later described, there's a Chinaman wearing a hat which rests on his ears. He's got a dead cigar and a mouth of dead teeth. He's standing on tiptoe to see over the shoulders of a woman wearing a big fancy hat. She's holding out her wedding ring and shouting, "You want more margin? You can't have more margin." He's as drunk as a lord. Everybody is shouting. They're all trying to reach the glass booth where the clerks are. Everybody wants to sell out. The boy at the quotation board is running scared. He can't keep up with the speed of the way stocks are dropping. The board is painted green. The guy who runs it is Irish. He's standing at the back of the booth on the telephone. I can't hear what he's saying, but a guy near me shouts, "The son of a bitch has sold me out." Unable to decide whether to cash out or not, Bologna left, pushing his way through the fracas to the fresh air outside. The rules of the exchange, typically a state operation, stated that traders should not, quote, run, curse, push, or go coatless, unquote. The opening bell had barely echoed when every convention of decorum was instantly forgotten. Tickers continued to run ever further behind, but Crawford could not leave his podium. He phoned or sent messengers to the engineers in the basement to try to speed up the tickers. On the floor of the exchange, between post 1 and 4, hysteria was taking hold as traders were pushed against the counters by their feverish colleagues trying to get nearer to them. At post 2, a kind of madness took hold. General Oliver Bridgman, a U.S. steel specialist, was surrounded by men waving and yelling, as one bellowing like a lunatic. Bridgman would try to take down the orders as quickly as he could, screaming out which orders he had confirmed back to the traders, even as he watched U.S. Steel, the mighty mountain of Wall Street, dissolve like a sandcastle in the rain. Crawford knew that if steel continued its descent, it would carry everything else down the chute with it. At post 4, a comparable frenzy erupted. This was the home of some of the most iconic companies in America: General Motors, Caterpillar Tractor, Anaconda Copper, among others. Crawford saw a fat, perspiring man become almost hysterical, yelling orders that made no sense until some friend seized him by the arm and led him away. The ticker was running almost an hour late. Following the events from his office with rising alarm, Lamont knew he had to do something about the calamity unfolding across the street. Jack Morgan was in England. As the senior Morgan man, Lamont had inherited the mantle of Wall Street savior. He ordered his secretary to call a handful of top brokers, asking them to come to a meeting at 23 Wall Street at noon. But phone lines were so overwhelmed that it took Lamont's aide 10 minutes to reach Charles Mitchell, whose office was just 1 block away at 55 Wall Street. Lamont realized that the situation was spinning out of control. He remembered the panic of 1907 and tried to think, what would J. Pierpont Morgan do? Claude Cockburn, a British journalist working for the Times of London, was on the street trying to gather copy. A co-worker had advised him not to use the word panic. In his story that day, everybody was on edge. That morning, Cockburn had breakfast with an American friend at a hotel cafe in Greenwich Village. The preoccupied friend kept jumping up to check the hotel's ticker tape machine, even though the exchange had not yet opened. After finishing their meal, Cockburn walked toward Wall Street and found himself part of a sort of an eerie silent army streaming in the same direction, all with the same dazed expression. At the corner of Wall and Broad Streets, Cockburn found an enormous murmuring crowd, and the people pressed close around us were talking. When one listened to them, almost in whispers, every now and then you could hear quite distinctly a hysterical laugh. As time passed, the crowd grew thicker and noisier, and then there was an eddy in the middle of it, and a man in shirt sleeves was pushing his way across the street in the direction of the Morgan offices. It was Charles Mitchell, making his way toward the bankers' meeting called by Lamont at 23 Wall Street, shoving people on the sidewalks aside with his imposing frame. After watching the tape all morning, Albert Wiggin, the chairman of Chase, had formed an opinion. There is no bear market. It's a panic, and we've got to do something. After receiving Lamont's summons, Wiggins put on his hat and, like Mitchell, set out for the Morgan Bank. Richard Whitney, meanwhile, left the exchange and walked over to the Morgan offices to report to the bankers what was taking place. He had been appointed acting president of the exchange while his superior, E.H.H. Simmons, was on a 2-month honeymoon in Hawaii following his wedding on October 4th. As the crowd grew denser and rowdier, the doormen who had been preventing the public from entering the Morgan Bank were joined by policemen. When Mitchell and the other bankers arrived, the doormen allowed them entry and then shut the doors tight and guarded the entrance. Mitchell, Wiggin, William C. Potter of Guarantee Trust, Seward Prosser of the Bankers Trust, and Richard Whitney gathered around Lamont's roll-top desk. Richard's older brother, George, who was a Morgan partner, also joined the impromptu meeting. They all grasped the gravity of the situation. Each had an institution at risk of being caught up in the panic, however solid their own balance sheets. The Wall Street Journal later estimated that the group represented more than $6 billion of massed banking resources, not including the vast unknown wealth of the private partnership that was J.P. Morgan. Lamont asked each man to contribute his thoughts, speaking quietly so as to not be overheard. With no notes taken, the men offered their assessments. They eventually agreed on a plan of attack. Each of the 5 banks represented would commit $20 million to plow into the market in hopes of stabilizing it. They were later joined by George F. Baker Jr., of the First National Bank. The initial commitment of 120 million was later doubled to a 250 million, with a few other banks and the Guggenheims joining in. The idea was to use the money to buy up shares in 37 of the most active stocks that had been hardest hit by bank panic selling. Bernard Baruch declined Lamont's urgent request to participate, a stinging rejection from one of Wall Street's most prominent investors. Baruch had no illusions about the plan's chances. He believed it was throwing good money after bad. With the markets now having so many participants, no group, even powerful banks, could ensure the markets wouldn't continue to collapse. The day was past when the House of Morgan could rally Wall Street in such a crisis, Baruch later explained. Within 20 minutes, the bankers ended their consultation. Lamont escorted them to the door. Everyone shook hands in agreement about their grave mission. Before leaving the meeting, Richard Whitney had ordered Crawford to clear out the visitors' gallery. The sight of aides shooing people from their seats only served to trigger a wave of rumors that the exchange was about to close. By early afternoon, an even larger crowd began to congregate on the corner. Reporting for the Saturday Evening Post, Edwin Lefebvre, who had written Reminiscences of a Stock Operator, described the scene as a sea of shocked and almost paralyzed humans. The white faces were growing slimmer and the faces were growing whiter, but they stood there hour after hour, unable to go away, dying men counting their own last pulse beats. Head held high, affecting a relaxed demeanor, Mitchell led his colleagues out to return to their banks. His confidence had a soothing effect. As the crowd drew breaths of relief, cries were heard, "It's going to be all right." So Whitney went to um, each of the market makers, each of the trading desks, and he bought $5 million of steel stock above the market. And he went to each one, and it kind of stabilized. After the closing bell sounded, people on the trading floor howled, booed, groaned, and collapsed with exhaustion. Men drenched in sweat leaned against posts or sat on the floor, their heads in their hands, surrounded by so many scraps of paper that the premise looked like the aftermath of a ticker tape parade. They had a pool, they arranged a pool of money to buy stocks when they had no bid. And Lamont informed the stock exchange board of governors about the pool, but added that no man nor group of men can buy all the stocks that the American public can sell. The Federal Reserve Board had met twice that day, with Treasury Secretary Mellon attending the afternoon meeting. but a spokesman for the Fed emerged after the meeting to proclaim the feared words, no announcement. By the time it ended, the turmoil of Thursday, October 24, broke records. It was the heaviest trading day in the history of the New York Stock Exchange, with brokers handling transactions of 974 different stocks with 12,894,650 shares changing hands. The stock ticker recorded the day's final trades at 7:08 p.m., more than 4 hours late. There were big losses in stock value, but thanks to the big six who had that stock pool, the morning's plunge of 6 billion in losses had been cut in half. The Dow landed at 299.47, wiping out every gain for the year. You know, I point out to you, the Dow didn't go back above 1,000 until after I got a job. Or maybe that was the first time ever. And they talk to an astrologer. Anyway, the reason I'm reading it to you, other than not having something to say, is there's going to come a time when the market has rallied and guys are going to say, ETFs are great, or they're going to say this time is different, or they're going to say the Fed has our backs, or they're going to say all the buying's coming in from whatever they say. But if the market starts to give up the ghost and the panic sets in, people aren't going to believe it, and they're going to sell. We're not there right now, but I want to be ready for that. All right. Railtown closed at 31.81. It looks like 109,980 shares traded. That's essentially 32 cents. The last 5 trades, which is all my service gives me, 5,000 shares traded at 31.81. 5,000 additional shares traded at 31.81. 500 shares at 31.81. 500 shares traded at 31.81. And then finally, 30 seconds to the close, 1,500 shares traded at 31.81. So it looks like my prediction is going to come true, that I'm not going to get a chance, but I'm so glad you guys do, or have had a chance. I really am. I'm not yellows. Well, maybe I'm a little yellows, but it's not going to affect my happiness for you. So the chart came right up to the 50-day moving average. And I would guess that it feels like it's going to puncture that and go higher, maybe go to 35. But it also could pull back for a day or even 2 days, like right here. Like right here, you see? It comes up, and then for a couple of days, it goes sideways, then it collapses. It could do one of those before finally breaking through. It could. On the other hand, we could see some strength. but it's a good day. I agree with Neil that technically that's a nice trade. It'd be interesting to see what the Canadian stock looks like. It should be fairly similar. It is. It's very similar. But to me, it has a clearer short-term target than the U.S. market. So this has gone up very nicely all week, maybe a week and a half. You could get a pullback, but I would say the target is here, this gap or that gap. So I don't think the computers like the 50-day moving average, but I think that gap has a magnetic draw. So I would guess the stock's going to go up to fill that gap. But we'll see. We'll see. The volume's not huge, so you could have a little bit of a pullback. The pullback would just be for the fakers to make a little bit of quick profit. They'll test it for sure, but they won't test it with a lot of stock. So they'll get out of the way. It's just computers. If there's a lot of buying, they'll get out of the way. But I think they might find that there's not a lot of buying yet. So maybe they'll have some success, driving it down briefly. But their goal is a quick nick, and that's it. Bob's, yeah. Good information, Neil. Darn it. So Ward says, William, good PR on TELUS this morning. I looked, and I'm looking now. I didn't see it. Cheaper dividend stock. But it doesn't mean it's not there. I just didn't see it. Oh, Voya and TELUS boosting mental health support in workplaces. Ryan Bushnell's top picks, premium brands, Canadian natural resources, and TELUS. That's Bloomberg. I won't be able to see that article, but that's pretty good. That's not a PR, but I don't know who Ryan Bushnell is. Road to the 2026 TELUS Cup. Regina Pat Canadians. Analysts cut targets. Yeah, I knew I didn't see anything this morning. I still don't see what PR. Yeah, I don't see it. Ricky Brogan, Rail just crossed over the 50-day moving average. Maybe on my chart, which is adjusted for something, it hit it. It didn't cross it. But yeah, it's there. It looks good. T. Alex. Hi, William and RT colleagues. Hi, T. Alex. Ricky Brogan says, T. Alex. T. Alex says, hey, Neil, your news got me excited to the point that I added another. Very good, T. Alex. It's a nice position. Adelap, the thoid, not the toid, the thoid. Sir William, my new updated share balance. That's nice. Let's see what else you said. Sir William, my new updated share balance is 158,975. Been buying a few here and there. You have me under Ted Williams. Wish I could buy more, but I'm broke. Yeah, I wish I could buy. I get so frustrated. I used to have a full head of hair. But, it is what it is. And just be glad you have what you have. It's a nice position. I agree with you, though. I totally agree with you. And Ward and other people. People are going to wish they had purchased more shares. This stock is mispriced. And I think almost in all scenarios, it's mispriced. I mean, I suppose there's, if an asteroid hit New York, Toronto, Moscow, and London all at the same time, I guess the world might be thrown into troubles that markets wouldn't open. I don't know, but I can't really think of a scenario where, I mean, anything's possible in the short run, as we've seen, but I don't see a scenario where people are going to lose money at these prices for Railtown. And when the stock's up 20x, you're going to wonder, why didn't I buy more? But if you didn't, I suggest all you say is, I'm sure glad I bought what I did, because otherwise you'll drive yourself crazy. Once it moves, you can't unring the bell. So if you can act, if you have the courage to act, if you're hesitant, go ahead and act. That's a bell the other side can't unring either. They're going to wish they hadn't sold you the shares. Adela, I think no longer under 30. You're exactly right. Which was, I had, in my own case, I had 3 months to buy it under 30? And many of you did too. But I was unable to. But so many of you did. And with today's action, I'm sure we're over 19,300,000. It's very impressive. Very impressive. But I agree with you. I'm not sure you're going to see it under 30. That's a nice average, T. Alex. I'm going to write it down. 0.4926. Very nice average. T. Alex, Ricky Brogan. I don't know. Those might be bunny rabbits. It might be peace signs. It might be two hats. I don't know what it is. T. Alex, the Discovery X conference scheduled for April 29-30 at the Enercare Center in Toronto provides a critical platform for Railtown AI Technologies to solidify its position within the Canadian innovation something or other. T. Alex, Railtown AI stands to benefit in several key areas. Ricky says to Adela, congratulations. I didn't see Adela. Adela. I somehow missed Adela. Don't know how to fix that. Anyway, Adele App. I see. T. Alex, thought leader. Okay, Railtown AI stands to benefit in several key areas: thought leadership and visibility. Railtown CEO Corey Brandolini is a featured speaker at the event. Adelap, thank you, Rico. Adelap, Ricky. T. Alex, this placement alongside global figures like Jeffrey Hinton allows Railtown to showcase its sovereign AI mission and its recently launched Rail Engine ingestion technology to an audience of 3,000 people. T. Alex, strategic networking and partnerships. The conference focuses on connecting homegrown innovation with government and industry leaders. T. Alex, for Railtown, this is an opportunity to strengthen its existing collaboration with the TELUS Sovereign AI Factory and expand its network of Canadian software affiliates. T. Alex, commercial scaling, a primary theme of Discovery X 26, is moving Canada from a research powerhouse to a global commercial leader. T. Alex, participation in sessions focused on securing the AI stack and domestic infrastructure aligns directly with Railtown's goal of building a Canadian-focused AI deployment ecosystem. T. Alex, investment opportunities. The event features dedicated Ask an Investor sessions. T. Alex, following Railtown's recent $3.4 million private placement led by BlackBerry co-founders, the conference serves as a venue to attract further capital and strategic interest. They don't need any more capital. But I suppose if it came with strategic interest, they might do something. T. Alex, session title, AI Sovereignty and Scale, Canada's Next Innovation Challenge Date, Thursday, April 30, 2026, 3:30 p.m. to 4:30 p.m. EDT. Alex, location, Searchlight, Spotlight Theater, Enercare Center, Toronto key speaker, Corey Brandolini, CEO of Railtown AI Technologies. Couldn't be better. Couldn't be better. $31.81. Closing price, 109,980 shares. That's where we are. I'm not going to comment on anything else. And I think I've run out of anything really to say on Railtown or the general markets. So I'm going to wish for peace throughout the Middle East and elsewhere in the world. And let's see what. T. Alex, I am in Toronto, and if I can find the time, I might get there just to feel the excitement. You should go. You might need a pass, so maybe query the company if you can be invited. I don't know. You might not. I don't know. But you should go. Donna says, have a good evening, everyone. Same to you, Donna. And I wish everyone peace tonight, and we'll regather tomorrow. Ciao.